What's happening, YouTube? Another Diamondback review. Now hold on, before you say anything though, we're talking about a company that they had a few firearms come out. They didn't really get the initial pop that they wanted, but they're putting out stuff now that's very exciting. They're taking risks, they're taking on new projects, and my thing is, they don't rest on success. The things that they've done well, they keep trying to increase that, and they keep trying to raise that bar, so to speak. I shot more than 2 boxes of ammo through this firearm. Did not have a single failure to feed. Did not have a single failure to extract. Did not have a hiccup whatsoever. Okay? Guys, I thrashed on these magazines. These magazines took a beating today. You're going to see footage of these magazines taking a beating today. And the reality is, this thing never balked one time. Not once did this firearm actually complain at all. I thought that their aggressive texturing might get a little old after about 20, 30, 50, 100 rounds, but it doesn't. It's very, very well designed. Let's start off there. You're looking at a subcompact / compact size firearm, a little bigger than a Glock 26, smaller than a Glock 19. Really, really cool niche that they're into. So instead of having that 15 round capacity that Glock 19 has, they have a flush fit 12 round magazine. Okay. Now if you look at that, pretty small. Okay, fits in the size of my palm. Not a super large firearm. Great option for somebody that wants a concealed carry but doesn't want 6, 7 rounds, wants to go to that double stack. But something else really, really cool that Diamondback did is they went ahead and gave you the full-size magazine as if you were getting a Glock 17 or even a Glock 19 with one of the Zeb Technologies base plates or the Hive base plates. So now you've got a magazine extension that comes with the firearm, but they've also really, really heavily detailed it so it fits the awesome aggressive texturing that is done on the firearm. This is one of those things when I saw it in pictures, I was like, oh yeah, it looks cool. It's kind of got the same look as the new DB9. But let me go ahead and tell you, this is the most aggressive, awesome texturing that I've ever felt on a factory firearm. The only way I could describe it is if you were to take this firearm and give it to somebody to do a really good stipple job on, this is what they would come up with if they didn't get crazy with their soldering iron. The other cool thing about that texturing and that pattern is the fact that it really mates with the gun. It lends itself very well. It's in places where it should be, i.e. if you went to grab this magazine and had to rip it out, it's in all the critical compact points, or excuse me, the contact points. Shell casings extracting perfectly. The front cocking serrations were nice to have. The texture, I mean, I just can't put the texturing on the firearm over enough. I really, really, really love the texture of it. I'm not a mark for their textures. I'm not a mark for their firearms, but I love the fact that Diamondback is doing new things. They're not resting on their successes. They're trying to get to better heights. They're trying to build better firearms. There are a lot of things that I love about this firearm. And again, we're talking about one that's under 400 bucks. It used to be that you can get a used Glock 19, a used police turn-in Glock 17, and you could find them all day for like 200 bucks, 250 bucks, 300 bucks. Nowadays, you can't find a decent polymer firearm for under $500, maybe $400. Yeah, you can get a Glock 23, or not a Glock 23, a Glock 43. You can get the 42s, you can get the 48s. You start getting in that market. This is a double stack firearm that is exactly what I wanted from Glock. Give me something that's in between the 26 and in between the 19. Well, here we go. Here's a firearm that's in between the size of a 26, in between the size of a 19. It's more full size than the Glock 26, easier for me to hold even without the magazine in it. way easier for me to hold, but it's just got a great feel to it. It's got a very positive, pointing naturally feel to it. Then I turn around, oh, okay, well, I can keep a spare magazine with 15 rounds in it. So the concealed carry thing, great. Now I've got the extended magazine, and it's, again, like a Glock 19X. It's got a really, really full-size grip. I can go ahead and really, really get in on there, and the great index points on the frame for it. It's not going to be super accurate, but it's so comfortable and it shoots so well that it almost lulled me into the fact that it felt like I was shooting a full-size gun. It tricked me into feeling like I was shooting a full-size gun, even when I had the magazine, the short magazine in the firearm. I didn't have the full-size, or the 15-round extended magazine, as I would call it, in the firearm. I had this short 12-round magazine, which again, 12 rounds, awesome. I had it in there, and it's a great feeling firearm. For something that size, it tricked me. It really did. That's the best way I can explain it. It could be because it's April Fool's Day, but it tricked me. I had it in my hand, I was shooting it, and it never felt uncomfortable. It never tried to jump out of my hand. It never felt unnatural. It tricked me. It's the best way I can explain it. And that's the only real thing that I can almost knock about it. You know, the magazines worked fantastic. Everything worked great on the gun. So you get a lot more features, you get a lot more options, you get a really, really positive texturing on the firearm. You get the Glock capable sights, so you can go ahead and put whatever Glock sights you want on it. And these sights work great, by the way. 3-dot sights, they're just 3-dot, you know, normal regular gun sights. But you get a lot for your money. It's got a rail on it. You want to put a weapon light on it? Dude, they got you covered. So all in all, I love the gun. I love it. And I'm excited because I'm curious to see, as good as this is, as good as this is, as good as the upgrades to the Gen 4 DB9 are, I'm excited because what's next? What are they going to do next? What's their next firearm going to be? Because this is groundbreaking. I know people are going to say, oh, it's a polymer gun with a steel slide. Oh, it's got the same Glock stuff on it, or the Glock style stuff. There's a lot of engineering and upgrades that went into this gun. From the magazine release, to the undercut being reinforced, to the fact that it's this small and it's got the rail on it, to the fact that it's a small, compact 9mm that's got 12 rounds, the fact that they went ahead and made sure that you have a really, really nice extended magazine. Because this would be a little bit easier to conceal than a Glock 19, be easier to conceal than a Smith & Wesson M&P, be easier to conceal than a lot of popular firearms on the market. It would be easier to shoot than a Diamondback DB9. These feel solid and they run solid. They're not as hokey, they're not flimsy, they feel great. There's a lot of engineering and cool things that went into this. Only other thing I could maybe knock is I wish the serrations were a little bit grippier. I guess that would be the only other thing I could talk about. That's it. But I mean, they're perfect for concealed carry. I never slipped off them. I never had an issue with them. But, you know, I'm trying to find something wrong. I don't want it to come off like I'm a mark or a fanboy for the Diamondback stuff. But guys, they're just legitimately doing these things and making it happen. Get your hands on an AM2. You might not like it, you might not love it, but I promise you, you're going to be impressed. If you didn't like a DB9 at all, if you think I'm full of crap, I dare you to put one of these in your hand. Because for the price, I can't think of a firearm that is in that class that has all the options, all the features, all the upgrades that this thing has, and runs like this thing did. Watch the footage. Watch the clips. Got some nasty hits on that feed lint. Gnarly ones. Still running like a watch. I'm not making this stuff up. It just run great, guys. Diamondback AM2, 9mm, subcompact, compact. Don't really know what to call it. It's kind of in a league of its own. And in 2019, it's hard for me to fathom that a company's going to come out and do that. Every time a company does something like that, whether it's the M117 or the 320 or all these guns, I hate them, I don't like them. And I give them a chance. This thing was awesome. This thing shot great. The trigger is great. You get to there, you wait, you wait, you wait, break your shot. You go, let go, reset, you wait, you wait, you wait, you take your shot. What I went ahead and did here is because I wanted to display to you guys that are left-handed that this is a swappable magazine release. You can have it on the right side to drop your magazines, or you can have it on the left side to drop your magazines. I'll show you that in the photos, but it does have the cuts on the magazines already. Everything is good to go. Diamondback didn't forget about you. But one of the cool things about this firearm is just how the design is. They got rid of their FS9, their full-size 9, and they put this in, which is a middle-of-the-road, middle-sized firearm like I just spoke about. You've got your front cocking serrations, you've got your rear serrations, you've got a really, really awesome aggressive texture to the frame. Now when I say aggressive, I mean aggressive. The best way I can describe it is it's as if somebody took this to a stippling expert and said, hey, what would you do or what would you incorporate into the firearm? And they've incorporated it in such a way that there's no real bad hot spots. The spots where it could have gotten ugly or where you end up kind of really compressing, if you get a good 100% grip on the firearm, the spots where I would normally get a little bit of a hot spot, or for those of you that haven't experienced it, almost like you feel a blister forming because you're just getting that negative feeling, that really grippy texture, but it's almost cutting into your skin. Not to the point where it's bad, but you just over time shooting it, you get that feeling. I don't get that with this firearm, and when I initially started feeling it, I really thought I was going to have that, but I didn't get it when I shot at the range today. Put well over 100 rounds through this firearm today, and let me go ahead and tell you, not one failure to feed, not one failure to extract. So let's dive into the features a little bit further. The cool thing about the stippling that they did is I'm going to show you some pictures right now. And in the picture you'll see that they've actually raised it, and where most companies, when I get a stipple pattern done on a firearm, or when 4Pro does one, we do what's called an undercut or a double undercut. That's so that you can get really, really high up on the firearm, because ultimately the goal is to get up high here because you're trying to control that recoil. And the higher I can get, in theory, if I can get back here on the firearm, I would. Because what I'm doing is I'm giving that firearm one less place to go. The gun's always going to try and find the path of least resistance. So what they did is they cut this really, really, really high. But what they did that a lot of companies haven't done, I've never understood this, is they reinforced the area right behind it. I've had Glocks where we go ahead and cut them and they're just so close, like you could take it and bend the frame. There is not a lot of material left there, but there's a really large reinforcement right behind it. They had to engineer that in with their magazine release. Very cool. The next thing, the magazine release itself is a triangular shape. It's very easy to get to. It takes up a lot of real estate, but the way that they machined it, I've never once had a firearm that I don't accidentally trip the magazine release when I first start shooting it. M&Ps I've done it, Glocks I've done it, 1911s I've done it. When I'm first kind of getting a handgun in my hands and I'm really testing it and I'm swapping hands and doing things back and forth, I'm racking the slide a lot, I'm doing a lot of magazine changes, trying to see if there's a spot on that firearm that's a little bit off or that doesn't work well. I'm always trying to push that boundary. I've never had one that I don't accidentally trip the magazine release. It does not stick out at all. And when you get a purchase on the firearm, if you can see that in there, I'm not actually touching with either hand when I grip it that magazine release. But the moment that I go to it, even being on the opposite side, the moment I go to it, it pops out with authority every single time. Very unique that they did that. I don't know why that design hasn't really come out or been more popular elsewhere, but it's really, really, really refreshing on this firearm. Next thing that's pretty cool, they've got that rear striker pin. So now we've got the loaded firearm or the rearward striker indicator, okay? I don't know what they actually call it, but basically it's, hey, this firearm is charged, it's ready to go. Doesn't necessarily mean that the chamber's loaded, but the cool thing is they put that loaded chamber indicator up top. So if you glance down, you see brass, you see aluminum, you see something in there, steel, if you're running steel in your 9mm, you can see that it's loaded. Moving on from the striker. So you've got your 12 round magazine, and again, we've talked about the grip. We've talked about how it's just a natural feel, how it is very, very positive, and it feels like somebody who really knew what a stippled firearm should be made that design. Well, you've got that 12 round magazine, but now when you put that 15 round magazine in there, you've just got this really good, positive full frame, and it just works, guys. So this firearm has the internal safeties just like the other Glocks have and just like the Diamondback DB9 has. You also have a trigger safety on this firearm, which they didn't have on the DB9, which is refreshing. Same style as a Glock. Basically, as long as you're not holding your finger on this trigger, as long as nothing touches that initial safety here that you see, that slides up when you hit that and actuate that when you put your finger on there, this gun can't go bang. So if you drop it on the ground hard, it can't go bang. If you throw it at the wall, it can't go bang. Somebody tackles you and it's pointed at your leg, it can't go bang. If you're in a car accident, it can't go bang. The possibilities are endless. And it will handle 147 grain and below. So I'm excited about that. Let's talk about the magazines. The magazines are really, really nice magazines. They're a little bit more stout to me than some of the other companies I've dealt with. They don't have that flimsy steel magazine or aluminum magazine feel. They're solid. They slide in with authority. When you trip the magazine release, they slide right out. I didn't have any issues with that. I didn't have to rip any of them out. They're just a really good quality magazine. They've got a nice thick orange follower. It's a good quality setup. Last but not least, let's talk about the fact that it takes Glock Sights. Your standard Glock Sights, 17, 19, you can run them all. You're good to go. Let's talk about the fact that it's got a really, really, really positive Beaver Tail back here, kind of like a Glock. Love it. Tucks my hand in. Even if I've got a fatter hand, the way they've got it set up here, the webbing in my hand will not get high enough to get caught and give me that obviously that slide bite. But I was a little bit discouraged to see that my Shorefire XC1 doesn't fit on here. Not necessarily Shorefire's fault, not necessarily Diamondback's fault. A lot of these companies don't communicate with each other. That's why I was so impressed when Diamondback went ahead and did that with all their holster companies. Went ahead and said, hey, we want to be able to hit the ground running. We've talked about the crossbreed, which is awesome. It's so cool that you can get a company that has badass holster setups and just call them up and they're ready to go on this firearm. That is really, really slick to me, guys. There are a lot of options out there because Diamondback took the time to do that. I can't put them over enough for doing that. Not a lot of companies do that. We've talked about my Costa, we've talked about other firearms I've had, that really pisses me off when a company doesn't have the foresight to do that. Last but not least, I know we've probably brushed on it, but that fact that we've got a loaded chamber indicator, that's kind of cool to me. It's something that would I necessarily need? No, because I tend to, if I look at a firearm, I'll do that press check. I'll make sure, okay, I'm pointed out, I'm where I want to be. Oh, well, yeah, okay, I got one in there. The other cool thing about that is where this striker indicator right here, and I got to learn a technical term for it. I've never had one of these on a firearm. I think the XDs have them. I know that there used to be an FN that had them. But Basically, it's a cocked and locked indicator is what I'm calling it. But the cool thing is, even with that on there, if I turn around and hit the back of the gun is solid and flush. It's just one of those things that's probably stupid to some people, but when I do a press check, I like to hit the back of the gun, make sure it's in full battery. I've had firearms where I pull it out of a holster, it's not in full battery, and I've done a tap and a smack instead of a tap and a rack, and they work great. It's just one of those things that usually if I have a firearm that I know hangs up a little bit or has hung up, I've just done it before, and I've never trained to do it. It's just my brain knew, hey, this is what's probably wrong with it. You've got that really, really rigid leather holster. Go ahead and do that, which is why I've always put my thumb on the back of the firearm when I put it in my holster. So even if I have this crossbreed and it's a great holster and it works fantastic, if I'm loaded, I'm putting my thumb pressure on it, putting it in the holster. It's something I do, guys. You don't have to do that. But I like the fact that there's nothing protruding back here. So if I turn around and I drop that thing and I hit it, it doesn't hurt my hand at all. That's kind of cool too. I like for a concealed firearm like that, the Glocks, the M&Ps, I like for it not to have something to conceal on, or excuse me, to snag on when you're concealing it. So let's talk about how it's shot, guys. It shot really, really well. I was very impressed with it. It was very easy to control. It felt great in my hands. It didn't give me any hot spots. The texture was phenomenal. I love this texture that's on this firearm. Absolutely phenomenal. The trigger is actually really refreshing. It's a Glock style trigger, okay? You've got your take up, you've got your break, you've got your wall. Very simple. I was always able to gauge exactly where I was at. I was always able to get to reset or get to that wall, sit on it, wait, take the shot. Or even if I wasn't going to take a breath or anything. If you see some of the video where I'm shooting rapid fire, I'm obviously not doing that. But at 25 yards, it's nice to have that. Here's the wall. Here's where I'm going to get to. I'm taking it up. Okay. Yeah, I like where my sights are at. They're kind of back and forth just a little bit. Yeah, right about there, settled in. Okay, there it goes. I like being able to gauge that trigger like that. Very, very, very easy to do on this firearm. Go and try one, guys. Diamondback AM2. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. I mean, if you want to. If you think I talk a lot, yeah, I probably talk a lot. But some of you guys like that. Some of you guys like it. I know some of you hate it, but some of you like it. Subscribe, like, comment, whatever you got to do. But genuinely, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you like this thing.